Seiya is a pathetic, overprotective freak who was summoned to save the world, but he starts doing push-ups and rizzing up every goddess. Now they all want his Excalibur and became the strongest hero and defeats the Demon King. This all begins as 100 years later, we jump to the Divine Realm, a place packed with gods and goddesses. A huge ceremony is happening there to pick which deity will take charge of saving one of the many worlds out in the multiverse. Here's the problem those worlds keep running into. Every so often, a demon lord pops up whose only goal is to take over and eventually wipe that world out. To stop that, each world gets a specific deity assigned to it. That deity's job is to summon a human hero, guide them, and make sure the world survives. Every world also has a difficulty rating for how hard it is to save, and the highest, most punishing tier is rank S. Back to the ceremony. The chosen deity this time is Ristarte, Rista for short, the healing goddess. She's a cute blonde, friendly vibe, but still pretty new at this. She was born in the Divine Realm about a century ago, which makes her young by God's standards, and she's only saved 5 worlds so far. A lot of older, more experienced gods have saved way more. To make it tougher, the world she drew is rank S. Translation: the odds are not on her side, and she knows it. The nerves hit hard. Rista gets to work. She opens the records to look for a hero candidate, focusing on people from Japan. Why Japan? Because stories about getting transported to another world are common there. So Japanese heroes usually understand the situation faster and don't panic. She needs someone truly strong, crazy potential, huge power, the whole package. She spends hours scrolling, filtering, and comparing stats, but nothing feels perfect. Just when she's about to give up, she slips, tumbles out of her chair, and causes a loud scene. In the mess, one profile catches her eye. Even though this candidate is still only level 1, his specs and raw numbers are absurdly high, off the charts good. It looks like the perfect pick. She doesn't waste a second. Rista starts the summoning and brings the candidate to the Divine Realm. The guy who appears is handsome and calm, and his name is Seiya. The moment she sees him, Rista gets a little swept up. He's exactly the type of hero you'd imagine in a story. Her imagination runs for a second, but she quickly shuts it down. Gods and humans can't be a thing, and she knows it. So she locks in, introduces herself as the goddess who called him here, and explains the mission. He needs to save the world of Gaeabrande by taking down its demon lord. Rista expects shock or at least some, wow, a goddess, energy. Instead, Seiya barely reacts. He's almost bored, calling her weird, which stings. She's ready to snap back, but reminds herself she's divine and shouldn't bicker with mortals. She swallows the irritation and keeps it professional. Seiya cuts in with a blunt point. If she's really a goddess, why does she need a human at all? Wouldn't her own power be more than enough to fix a single world? Rista explains the rule that runs everything. The gods created countless worlds so humans could grow on their own. So deities aren't allowed to directly interfere in human realms. That's why only a human hero can actually save a human world. She and the other gods can support, but they can't step in and do the fighting. After going back and forth for a while, Rista asks him to show his stats so they can plan. Instead of saying status, Seiya says properties. He adds that he can cross-check and confirm whatever information she has about him, which is an odd flex but shows he's cautious and methodical. Rista begs him to just use status like normal. He finally does, and the numbers line up. He's a 1 in a million hero type with the potential to beat the demon lord in Gaeabrande. Seiya's next question is very specific. What happens if he dies over there? Rista answers straight: if he falls in that world, he'll simply return to the place he came from. No permanent end. Even with that safety net, he still isn't fully convinced. To build momentum and clear doubts, Rista opens a portal that leads straight to Gaeabrande and asks him to head out with her. He refuses. He says going to a world that's dangerous right now is a bad move, especially since she already told him gods can't step in if things go south. Rista keeps pressing. After a lot of persistence, he agrees on one condition. She braces, thinking he's about to demand something wild. Instead, he takes off his shirt and immediately starts training. No jokes, no delayed push-ups, drills, everything. He's focused on raising his baseline and preparing for real combat. That's when it clicks for Rista. She missed a critical line in his file. Seiya's personality is extreme. He's impossibly cautious. He doesn't move a step until he's sure he's ready. With that realization, she backs off the portal idea and lets him work. Later, Rista meets the goddess of the seal, Arya Doa, Arya for short for T. Rista vents about how Seiya won't set foot in the world yet and just wants to train. Usually, heroes dash into the adventure and level up on the fly. Arya, however, tells her that being careful is smart, especially with Gaeabrande being rank S. Rista argues that grinding experience by fighting monsters is a better use of time than hiding in a room. Arya explains a key Divine Realm perk. Time here moves slower than in the human worlds, so there's no need to rush. Then she gives practical advice, make Seiya comfortable. Set up a bath, a shower, a proper bed. He'll perform better if he's taken care of. And one more tip, treat him like a friend, not like a distant goddess talking down from the clouds. Taking that to heart, Rista hurries back with a tray of food for Seiya. He refuses to touch it. He doesn't trust her yet and says it could be poisoned. To prove it's safe, he insists she eat it first. She does, and that breaks the stalemate. After that, she arranges everything Arya suggested, a working shower, a proper bath, and a small bed so he can actually rest. She also sets a routine. She'll leave meals outside his door 3 times a day. Rista tries to nudge him a bit, saying that his workout routine won't directly raise his fitness level the way fighting would. Still, she adds a small system to keep things coordinated. She gives him a bell to ring whenever he finishes a training block, so she knows what stage he's at. Seiya eyes the bell like it's a trap and even wonders if it's a bomb. That accusation pushes Rista over the edge. She storms out, fuming, and tells herself he'll quit this stubborn training phase and call for her help in 2 or 3 days. 4 days pass. Seiya is still at it non-stop, rigorous training. Rista starts worrying he might have actually collapsed in there. But one thing keeps her calm. The meals she leaves keep disappearing. He's eating, which means he's alive, so she waits. A week rolls by. Then ding, Seiya finally rings the bell. Rista sprints over, buzzing with hope. And the door opens to a shocker. The guy looks carved out of stone now, built like an MMA champ going Super Saiyan. She asks how the grind went, and Seiya calmly pulls up his numbers. In just 7 days of non-stop training, he's jumped from level 1 to level 15, picked up a few rare skills, and tightened every stat he can touch. Still, because he's Seiya, the human definition of overprepared, he says he's not satisfied yet and wants to push his stats to the ceiling. Rista is stunned, but bottom line, they're finally ready to move. Before they leave, Seiya settles on a personal motto, his little mental switch for battle mode. Ready perfectly. With that, Rista opens the way, and they step into Gaeabrande. First stop, the city of Adona. Goal number 1 is simple gear up. As they walk, Rista gets a crash course in Seiya's worldview. He trusts no one, expects traps everywhere, and assumes enemies are hiding in plain sight. She keeps telling him he's being dramatic, but the lectures bounce right off. They meet a kid named Nina along the road. She clearly takes a liking to Seiya, but he barely reacts. Rista asks her for directions to a good weapons shop. Once there, she hands Seiya money and tells him to pick armor, which ends with Rista choosing anyway because he won't commit. Then he drops the kicker. He wants 3 full sets of armor, not 1. On top of that, he buys a pile of smoke bombs and bags of medicinal herbs, just in case. Rista calls it overkill. Seiya calls it standard. Next, he asks Rista where they can find monsters to fight. She explains Adona is basically a tutorial city for new heroes, only low-tier creatures spawn nearby. He squints at that claim. Nina cuts in to back Rista. This area is safe enough that she can walk to the next town and nothing will happen. If anything does show up, it'll just be slimes, little blue blobs of goo. Seiya still isn't convinced. To ease him up, Nina shyly offers a warding charm she made herself. He hesitates, eyes narrowed, as if it might be cursed. Rista nudges him to accept it politely, so the girl doesn't feel hurt. A moment later, Nina's father arrives to take her home, and the two head off. With directions in hand, Rista and Seiya go hunting. Their first encounter is, of course, a slime. Seiya mutters that it could be higher level than it looks. Rista counters that slimes are basically the bottom rung, anyone can beat them. Seiya moves first. One precise slash and boom. The thing detonates like a mini-mine, vanishing in a violent blast. Most people would stop there. Seiya doesn't. He keeps going, slicing the air with atomic split slash. Then follows up with the fire spell, Hell's Fire, turning the ground into molten glass, just to make sure not a single cell of that slime remains. Rista yells at him for wasting resources, and tells him he should have used scan to check its stats first. Seiya replies that he did scan before striking. The readout said it was low level and weak, but he doesn't trust those numbers yet. In his head, bad data can get you killed. That's when Rista's senses spike. A heavy hostile pressure presses in. She recognizes it instantly. Machina Chaos, one of the Demon Lord's 4 heavenly kings, is nearby. The Demon Lord felt the ripple of Seiya's summoning and sent a top lieutenant to ambush the newbie hero, where low-level monsters spawn. She's been waiting for them to show. Rista freezes, unsure what play to call. She throws out a scan and nearly drops it. Chaos shows up as level 66. That's way beyond what they should be facing right now. She turns to Seiya for a plan, but he's already bolting. Rista chases after him, scolding him for abandoning her, while Chaos laughs and rushes in, hungry for the kill. Right as they're about to get caught, Seiya smashes smoke bombs into the ground, clouding the field and breaking line of sight. He calls it. They need to retreat to the Divine Realm. Rista starts the portal. Chaos lunges. Seiya fires a blaze to block her view for a second. In the scramble, Rista trips over his gear bag and crashes into him, and wish they tumble through the portal together. Safe for the moment, Seiya makes the call. More training, more levels, no shortcuts. He ushers Rista out of the room and tells her not to bother him unless he rings the bell. 4 straight days pass with 0 contact. Rista can't take the suspense. She uses a crystal ball to check on Adona and sees a nightmare. Chaos has invaded the city and is attacking civilians. Feeling the gaze, Chaos looks straight into the scrying view and delivers a message. If the hero doesn't show, she'll kill 1 person every 10 minutes. Then she proves she's serious by taking a life on the spot. Rista rushes to Seiya and begs him to go immediately. He says he isn't ready. He asks for the exact time ratio between worlds. Rista calculates. Every 10 minutes in Gaeabrande equals 16 hours in the Divine Realm. Seiya nods. In that case, there's still enough time to power up. He returns to the grind. Rista tries again to push him out the door, but Chaos announces her next target, Nina's father. Rista is done watching. She wants to go help. Seiya stops her. He says charging in half prepared is the fastest way to get everyone killed. Rista argues hard. They need outside help. She can keep him alive with healing. And if he dies over there, he'll simply return here, he loses nothing. The citizens of Adona don't have that luxury. She also calls him out for acting cold toward the girl who gave him a protection charm from the heart. Seiya shoots back that the charm itself could have been how Chaos tracked them. That line sets Rista off. She hates that she summoned someone so emotionally blunt. Even so, Seiya lays out his core logic. If he dies, the city and eventually the entire world goes down with him. The only path that makes sense is leveling until the odds bend in their favor. Then, finally, he says the words Rista has been begging to hear. He's ready. Rista checks his status screen. He's climbed from level 15 to level 21 in this short window, and his stats have spiked again. On paper, Chaos still reads as higher level, but with Seiya's optimized build, stacked skills, items and planning, he now has a real shot. Rista agrees this is the moment. Seiya flips the mental switch ready perfectly. Rista starts to open a portal that would drop them right in front of Chaos, but Seiya chops her lightly on the head to stop her. Not there, his move implies. If Chaos sees them coming, she could use Nina's father as a shield or kill him instantly. Later, Chaos is about to take down Nina's father when she suddenly senses Seiya. Seiya fires a strong wind blade and stops her attack. Rista is shocked because this is a new move she didn't know he learned. After the civilian is safe, Seiya steps up to face Chaos. Chaos checks his status, sees he has leveled up, and decides to go all out. She chases him at high speed, showing off her strength and skill. When she notices Seiya keeping up, she pushes even harder. Then she stabs herself with her own sword, and a huge beast bursts out of her body. The monster hammers Seiya, and it looks like he's finished. But he sets his stance and blocks the hit cleanly. Rista tries to read Seiya's level because, based on what she thought his numbers were, he should not be able to block that. Her scan fails because Seiya is hiding his data with a skill called Fake Out. She forces past the cover and finally sees the real numbers. Seiya is level 37, with strong stats and many skills. She realizes he has been using Fake Out since his very first training. She also understands that in their first meeting with Chaos, he already could have beaten her easily, but he chose not to finish her until he was fully sure he could surpass her power. Once again, he is being extremely cautious on purpose. With his confidence set, Seiya ends it quickly. He moves in and lands a fast, heavy sword strike that defeats the demon. The city is saved, and everyone who watched praises him. The mayor invites them to a party to show thanks, but as usual, things turn the way you'd expect. To make sure Chaos is truly gone, Seiya gathers every leftover piece of her body and launches a stream of fireballs. He believes there is a real chance she could regenerate, so he keeps blasting until nothing remains. The cleanup works, but it burns a large part of the city. Afterward, the mayor, in tears, asks them to leave and never return. Only Nina and her father thank Seiya for saving them. Nina's dad offers some money, but Seiya politely asks for all of the money he has because the first amount is not enough. Rista apologizes for how this looks, and Nina waves goodbye. On the way out, Seiya drops Nina's protection charm, picks it up and says it might be a cursed item that draws monsters. For him, that helps because enemies will come to him, so he won't need to search for them. Rista knows her own thoughts aren't lining up well, but she lets herself consider that Seiya might have a softer side underneath. Rista thinks they are headed to the next town, but Seiya tells her to open a portal back to the Divine Realm so he can keep training. Rista gives up arguing and agrees. After that, Rista goes to Area again and complains about Seiya's constant workouts. She says saving a world-marked SS is extremely hard, and also admits she wants to become a high-ranking goddess like Arya. Arya tells her not to treat her as a model. Even though Arya has saved 300 worlds, there was one world with rank B that she failed to rescue. That case was supposed to be simple, but her mistake ruined it, and it still bothers her. Their talk cuts off when Seiya bursts into the room looking for Rista. Arya is startled, and Rista feels a quick sting of jealousy, thinking Arya might like him. Arya calmly introduces herself and asks why he came. Seiya says he has moved beyond only push-ups and squats to level up. Rista is happy because it sounds like he will focus more on fighting, but he still thinks the risk is high. He asks Rista to make gym equipment for him, but she refuses and explains that training gear won't raise his level forever and will hit a limit. Arya suggests a different route. Get help from a god who fights. They bring him to Cerseus, the Divine Blade, a swordmaster who trains all the time. At Arya's request, Cerseus agrees to coach Seiya and warns that his regimen is strict. Seiya answers bluntly that he won't allow Cerseus to quit halfway, then they begin the hard schedule. On the first day, in the dining room, Rista asks Cerseus how it's going. He says Seiya is doing well, though Seiya still can't keep up with him. On the second day, Rista meets Cerseus again and sees he looks more tense. When she asks about training, he answers angrily. He says Seiya's power has gone up again, and adds that if he used all of his abilities, he would beat Seiya easily. This surprises Rista because it means that, under the current limits, Seiya has basically already beaten Cerseus. On the third day, she finds Cerseus sitting alone in a corner of the dining area, clearly upset. He says the training is not going how he wanted and walks off with a shaken look. On the fourth day, Rista brings food to share with Cerseus, but can't find him in the hall. In the kitchen, she discovers him hiding, terrified. He explains he is avoiding Seiya because he's scared of him. Seiya has been training him day and night without breaks. Even though Seiya has already surpassed him, he still wants to keep training. Just then, Seiya finds them and comes to take Cerseus for more work. Cerseus refuses, swears he will never teach sword training again, and throws his sword into the sea. Arya appears and tells Rista that the great goddess Ishtar wants to see her. Rista leaves, and poor Cerseus is left to deal with Seiya. In front of Ishtar, Rista explains that Cerseus has quit and will not touch a sword anymore. Ishtar says Cerseus used to be human with a weak heart. Some humans can be reborn as gods. They lose their memories, but strong feelings inside the soul don't fully fade. Seiya's harsh training likely brought those old emotions back. Then Ishtar gives the next task. Her clairvoyance shows the demon lord's army moving toward the city of Samel. Rista and Seiya must go there, and they will find allies in that city who can help them keep pushing to save the world. Later, Rista goes looking for Seiya, fully set on talking him into coming with her. When she finds him, he's in the middle of pummeling Cerseus, who already looks broken. Luckily, Seiya is actually ready to leave this time. He drops his usual catchphrase and agrees to go. Poor Cerseus is left shaking. They reach the city of Samuel and see a grim scene. People are running everywhere because a huge undead army is closing in. Seiya asks Rista the proper way to deal with the undead. She explains there are two reliable options: holy water and fire. They head to a shop to stock up. Seiya tries to buy 10 bottles of holy water, but the shopkeeper refuses. There isn't enough supply, so the situation almost turns into a fight. Rista steps in and calms it down, and they walk out with only 10 bottles. Following Ishtar's guidance, they go to the town church to meet new allies, though Seiya shows zero interest. Inside, a priest, a nun, and 2 young dragon bloods welcome them. The youngsters proudly carry the blood of dragons. Right in the middle of introductions, Seiya suddenly splashes holy water on the priest. Rista scolds him, then the priest's skin starts peeling, exposing him as an undead spy sent by Death Mugler, one of the demon lord's 4 heavenly kings. The 2 allies tense up to fight, but Seiya moves first. With a blinding quick slash, he cuts the infiltrator down before anyone else can react. Rista asks how he figured out the priest was undead. Seiya says he used plain logic. The priest looked like the oldest in the group and would be the one most likely to die first, so testing him with holy water was the safest check. He also admits he did it because he felt like it, and got lucky. Before they can say more, another undead bursts in and announces that over 10,000 undead are marching on the city to wipe it out. The next morning, Seiya decides to erase the intruder for good. Rista, guessing what he's about to do, yanks everyone out of the church. Moments later, Seiya incinerates the entire building with a huge flame spell. The nun faints from the shock. After the smoke clears, 2 locals step forward to introduce themselves: Mash, a young warrior, and Alulu, a small mage. Seiya pours holy water on both of them as a safety test. They're fine. He checks their stats, calls their levels too low to help, and says they couldn't even sense the undead priest, so they'll only slow things down. Mash flares up, ready to challenge him, but soldiers rush in after hearing the explosion. The nun defends Seiya, explaining the blast came from the zombie priest, and warns that the undead army is almost here. She tells the soldiers that a goddess and a hero, Ristarte and Seiya, are present to protect the city. The troops bow and ask for help against the army. Seiya uses the moment to ask about a reward. Their captain says the Empire will pay well if they save everyone. Seiya states he'll handle every undead by himself and needs no backup. He orders Mash, Alulu, and the soldiers to stay behind and protect the citizens. The young warrior doesn't like that and walks off instead of following orders. Seiya takes to the sky toward the undead horde using his flight skill. Before leaving, he tells Ristarte to wait for him at the end because he won't need her. Annoyed, Ristarte taps into a divine order that lets gods boost themselves to assist heroes. She activates her own flight, sprouting angel-like wings, and tries to catch up, but no matter how hard she pushes, she can't close the gap and quickly wears out. Seeing her struggle, Seiya swoops back, grabs her, and carries her through the air at high speed. By the time they arrive, Ristarte looks totally ruffled, and her wings are torn up from the rush. Facing the massive undead formation, Seiya decides the best answer is explosives. Ristarte tells him this world has no planes or bombs. Seiya calmly says he learned something new, then summons a small meteor from nowhere and hurls it at the enemy line. The impact causes huge destruction and wipes out the front ranks. Ristarte asks where that power came from. He says he saw it in a vision while training with Circes. Staying true to his careful nature, he doesn't stop there. He calls down another meteor, erasing the entire army and saving the city. After the spell worked, Seiya complains that the technique drains his HP, acting like he's near his limit. Ristarte checks and realizes he didn't even use a quarter of his health. After the mission ends, Alulu tells Ristarte she can't find Mash anywhere. Ristarte tries to calm her down, saying Mash should be safe now because the undead army has already been wiped out. Even so, Ristarte decides it's smarter to ask Seiya for help. They go to find him and catch him in his room. Totally focused on synthesis research, he's studying ways to combine materials to make his weapons and armor stronger. To prove his method works, he picks up a steel sword, pulls a single strand of Ristarte's hair, and fuses it into the blade. Right in front of them, the steel turns into a platinum sword. Ristarte clearly doesn't like that her hair was used like crafting material, but she lets it slide because they need his help. Their talk gets interrupted when a woman shows up with a package addressed to Seiya. Inside is a big mirror. The glass suddenly goes dark, and a shadowy image appears. A young boy tied to a chair. Both girls tense up and then they realize it's Mash. He's being tortured by Death Magla. The mirror was sent by Death Magla himself. It's a special device that can show scenes from far away. He wants them to watch as he kills Mash to get revenge for the army they destroyed. Just before the killing blow, Death Magla lets Mash say a few last words. Mash uses the chance to thank Seiya and says he respects him for taking out the entire undead army by himself. The moment Death Magla moves to finish Mash, Seiya tells Ristarte to open a portal to the Divine Realm immediately. Death Magla laughs and says Seiya's sword can reach him from there. Seiya answers by drawing a magic sword that can cut across dimensions. He swings through the connection and slices off Death Magla's hand, buying them a little time. Inside the Divine Realm, Seiya explains the time difference. If they move fast, they can still save Mash. They have 15 minutes here, which is only about 10 seconds where Mash actually is. Ristarte suggests going to Ishtar to get Mash's exact location, and she warns Seiya to behave himself when they ask. Seiya ignores the warning. Ishtar reminds them there are rules that limit direct help to humans. Seiya replies that all she needs to do is open a portal, the same kind of support she gives other goddesses. Convinced, the great goddess, Ishtar, tells them where Death Magla is holding Mash. Seiya then asks her to open a portal right in front of Death Magla, and she agrees. They jump through and arrive on the spot. Seiya quickly tells Ristarte the plan. He will fight Death Magla, and she will rescue Mash. Seiya rushes in first so Death Magla can't hurt Mash again. Death Magla instantly raises a magical shield and summons a phantom fire monster that can only be hurt by ice. Seiya's fire spells do nothing to it, and for a second it looks like he's in trouble. Then he changes tactics. He uses a blunt fist technique that freezes on impact. He planned for this ahead of time by preparing a freezing amulet. With the phantom locked in ice, Seiya throws flames again and defeats Death Magla. When the summoner dies, the phantom monster loses its master, becomes weak, and is destroyed. While Seiya fights, Ristarte heals Mash, and the rescue is a success. Once Mash recovers, he admits how strong Seiya is and asks to become Seiya's apprentice. Seiya answers that Mash can do whatever he wants as long as he carries Seiya's bags. Mash happily agrees and says he wants to take Seiya to the dragon's den. He explains that 16 years ago, a heavenly dragon brought Mash and Alulu together and told them to team up with a great hero, defeat evil forces, and break a magic seal to get a powerful weapon. Ristarte gets excited and tells Seiya to claim that weapon to boost his power. Seiya refuses to rush. He says leveling up and training come first before anything else. They all return to the Divine Realm. There, they find Circeus completely changed by his last experience with Seiya. He has quit using the sword and switched to cooking. Seiya asks Circeus to train Mash in sword skills instead. Circeus agrees right away, happy to train someone he thinks he can easily outclass, unlike Seiya. Next, they visit Hestiaca, the goddess of fire, and politely ask her to teach Alulu fire magic. Hestiaca says yes, explaining that it's the duty of the gods to help heroes who are trying to save a world. Before moving on, Seiya tells Rista to find a trainer for him as well. While searching, Rista literally bumps into Valkyrie, the goddess of destruction. Valkyrie starts out hostile. She insults Rista as a third-rate goddess, and her so-called praise quickly turns into inappropriate touching. When Valkyrie hears that Rista is in charge of saving an S-rank world, she switches to admiration, but the boundary issues don't stop. Watching this, Seiya decides Valkyrie should be his teacher. Rista argues that's impossible because Valkyrie is known to kill people instantly if they talk to her the wrong way. Seiya doesn't back down. He walks straight up and demands training. Valkyrie's anger explodes, and she's about to erase him, when Arya appears, begs her to calm down, and explains that Seiya is the rare hero summoned to save an S-rank world. Valkyrie finally eases off, but only if she gets to hit Arya later. After that, Arya suggests a safer option. Adanella, the goddess of war, would be a better trainer. Adanella is extremely talented but also very eccentric. Some say she's pretty unstable. She agrees to train Seiya and shows off her famous eternal sword technique. She warns that her training is so intense that her own body might give out before it's done. Seiya doesn't hesitate at all. Even with that warning, he's determined to take her training and push his power even higher. On the first day of training, Mash starts sharpening his sword form, and you can already see progress, while Rista is carrying a food tray to Seiya. She spots Adanella sitting outside and, curious about how things are going, asks for an update. Adanella says the sessions are going well, and even laughs a little about how serious Seiya is. He never wants to stop and keeps asking for more drills. Right then, as if on cue, Seiya calls Adanella back to continue, proving her point about his non-stop focus. On the second day, Rista notices Seiya and Mash talking quietly in the cafeteria. After Seiya leaves, she checks in with Mash about the conversation and realizes Seiya is already shaping the boy's thinking with his trademark overcautious approach to everything. Later, when Rista brings Seiya another meal, she sees Adanella looks much more put together than before, cleaned up hair, neat clothes, overall more presentable. When Rista asks about the change, Adanella admits she fixes herself up because she feels embarrassed if Seiya sees her looking messy. More importantly, Rista asks if Adanella can teach Seiya the eternal sword technique immediately since they're scheduled to leave the next day. The answer shocks her. Seiya has already mastered it. Adanella calls him a genius and says he's the only human she has ever truly acknowledged. Hearing that, Rista starts feeling uneasy about how fast this is moving. On the third and final day of training, Rista goes to collect Mash and Alulu. Mash clearly benefited, his level has jumped a lot. But Alulu is upset because her level hasn't increased at all. Hestiaca, the goddess of fire, told her the reason. Alulu can't feel or channel fire magic. You have to be born with that gift, and unfortunately, Alulu doesn't have it. They regroup in the lobby with Seiya, who's waiting for Adanella because she said she had something to give him. When Adanella arrives, she rushes straight into Seiya's arms and hugs him. Everyone freezes. She is dressed up beautifully and looks stunning. She confesses she loves Seiya, begs to stay by his side, and even hands him a homemade cake she baked with love. Seiya, cold as ever, says he doesn't understand her feelings and calls the cake gross. The rejection snaps Adanella. She goes into a rage, smashing and destroying whatever's around her. Seiya doesn't react. He just tells Rista calmly to open a portal because it's time to go. Back in the world of Gaeabrande, the team starts their trip to find the dragon village. Along the way, they run into monsters, but Seiya deletes them instantly by using a new ability. He can summon a phoenix, and the fiery bird sweeps away nearby enemies in seconds. The rest of the group feels deflated. Even with their fresh training, they still haven't taken down a single monster themselves. Rista tries to read Seiya's current stats, but he hides them again with Fake Out. He goes a step further and teases her by poking her eyes, turning her check-in into a joke. They stop at a dwarf shop to buy light sources. Seiya announces he wants 500 torches. Rista steps between him and the counter and talks him down to 5. Guided by the symbols on the dragonkin children's hands, they finally reach the dragon den. There's a door sealed by protective magic, and the plan is to open it properly. Instead, Seiya shocks everyone by blasting the door apart with his power. The group's morale sinks again. The careful plan was ignored, but at least the way forward is open. Moving deeper, they come to a portal marked by a circle on the ground. A mysterious voice tells them that to reach the dragon village and claim the powerful weapon thereafter, they have to stand inside the circle. Seiya suspects a trap. To test it safely, he tosses a lizard through first. The creature hops back out without a scratch, so the team steps in. On the other side, they're greeted by Legos, a dragonkin man from the same race as Mash and Alulu. Lego says their leader, Levy, wants to meet them immediately. As they walk, the two kids worry out loud about why they look different from other dragonkin. Lagos explains that dragonkin are born from dragons and humans, and depending on how strong the dragon blood is, a person might look more dragon-like or more human-like. Seiya states it bluntly so there's no confusion. They're dragon-human hybrids with thin dragon blood. That straight talk hits their confidence and drags their spirits down even more. They meet Levy. She says that with the dragonkin's help, the heroes really can defeat the Demon Lord. She grants Mash the power to transform into a dragon whenever he wants, which massively boosts his stats and abilities. Alulu asks for the same ability, but Levy says it isn't needed because Alulu's role is different and even more important. Then she reveals the truth that rocks everyone. Alulu is destined to become the weapon, Exphoria, the only thing that can kill the Demon Lord. To achieve that, Alulu will have to give up her life. The party is stunned, especially Mash. Levy explains the Demon Clan has already taken over a large part of the world, and getting Exphoria is only possible after Alulu dies. She even says she envies Alulu, and the other dragons bow to show respect to Alulu's fate. After some time, Alulu accepts what this means and says she will make the sacrifice to defeat the Demon Lord. Ristarte can't accept it and turns to Seiya for help only to notice he's off to the side shopping for speed seeds. Ristarte begs him to focus on Alulu's crisis first. Seiya answers in a flat voice that Alulu should accept her true purpose. Those words break her. Alulu bursts into tears and runs away. The sacrifice ceremony turns into a big celebration. Our group is invited to a huge feast. Some young dragonkin kids hand out cookies to Ristarte and Mash. Ristarte accepts the cookies, but she keeps an eye on Mash. She thinks Seiya is quietly pushing him to eat them. Then the moment everyone's been talking about finally arrives. Alulu is supposed to be the sacrifice. The dragon leader explains the rule again in plain words. If they want the magical sword, Alulu must jump into a special pit. Her whole body will merge and turn into the sacred blade. Hearing that, Mash can't take it. He tries to save Alulu, even if it means fighting fate, but the guards block him. Shaken, Alulu pulls back and loses her resolve to go through with it. The guards are then ordered to throw her into the pit. At that instant, Seiya steps forward. He drops the guards in seconds and tells Alulu she will not be sacrificed because she is his baggage carrier. Ristarte pushes back. If Alulu doesn't become the legendary sword, how can they beat the Demon Lord? Seiya answers there's no guarantee that Blade would beat the Demon Lord anyway. Ristarte actually laughs it off and says fine, then they'll find another way without relying on that sword. Just when it seems like they've solved it, everything goes wrong. The heroes suddenly feel paralyzed. This is exactly what Levy planned. She had a paralyzing agent mixed into the banquet food, yes, even the cookies. The guards move to throw Alulu in while everyone is frozen. But Seiya stands up calm and steady. He threw up all the food earlier on purpose, as a safety move, so the drug never took hold. Seeing her plan slipping, Levy decides to face Seiya herself and force Alulu's destiny. She transforms into a giant dragon and swoops to the cliff above them. She boasts that her scales can't be pierced, so Seiya can't hurt her. Seiya draws a sword and says it's the dragon killer. He explains he prepared for a dragon fight as soon as he heard they were heading to the dragon den. He upgraded his blade by weaving in Mash's hair, Alulu's hair, and this really annoys Ristarte. 100 strands of Rista's hair. Seiya charges and slashes Levy, dealing real damage. When Levy targets Alulu, Seiya covers her and pulls her back to safety. Levy then triggers a cursed necklace on Alulu to kill her remotely. Seiya warns her to lift the curse. She refuses, so Seiya strikes again and cuts her power in half. Levy still won't give up. She goes all out and forms a full body armor of scales like an invincible shell. Seiya swallows a speed seed he bought earlier, grabs a spare sword, and presses the attack. Even if the hits don't deal big damage, he has a different goal to knock Levy into the pit. Levy figures it out and claims she dispelled the spell by dropping her special armor. She fakes a retreat, pretending to fly off. Seiya doesn't buy it. He fires a huge blast that sets her wings on fire, and she plummets into the pit. As she falls, the cursed trinket on Alulu shatters. A moment later, a sword rises from the pit Levy has transformed into a blade. Seiya says, now that her flesh is the sword, we only need Alulu's blood. He makes a small cut on Alulu to draw a drop of blood, and in front of everyone, the sword in Seiya's hand changes shape into the famous sacred weapon, Exasion. People say Exasion is the key to defeating the Demon Lord. Seiya calls it win-win. They have a holy blade, and Alulu doesn't die. They step through a portal afterward. Ristarte notices Mash and Alulu want to talk alone. It's clearly something romantic. She tells them to go ahead and gives them space. Ristarte stays with Seiya and asks what's bugging her. Is that sword really the legendary one? She can't feel any power from it. Seiya admits he modified one of his own swords in front of everyone so it would look like the legend. He did it to calm everyone down. Rista worries they can't beat the Demon Lord with a fake. Seiya says he'll find other methods and asks Rista to promise she won't tell anyone about his trick. She agrees to keep it quiet. When they reach the exit of the Dragon Village, a squad of the Imperial Knights of Roseguard blocks the path. Their leader explains they need the heroes' help against the Demon Lord's forces at Fort Olga. Their commander has already gone on ahead. The team says yes, they'll help. But the soldiers add one more thing. Before Fort Olga, they must take down Beelzebub, one of the Demon Lord's allies, who's commanding the nearby army. Beelzebub is a human-fly hybrid and leads a massive swarm of flies. The heroes fly out toward the target. They spot a huge fortress, completely covered in flies, thousands of them. Seiya checks Beelzebub's stats and sees the scary part. His speed is insanely high. They also see a captain leading soldiers in an attack on the fortress. The flies keep grabbing the soldiers, lifting them, and dropping them to their deaths. Mash is furious and wants to charge in. Seiya stops him. He explains the flies are too fast, faster than the human eye can follow, so a straight fight right now would be suicide. After the brutal losses, they meet Captain Rosalie. She bows her head for the fallen and then says they should keep fighting to avenge them. The heroes advise her to pull back, regroup, and build a real plan before anyone else rushes in. After saying yes, Captain Rosalie leads the group toward Fort Olga for a strategy meeting. On the way, they learn the reason the Demon Lord's troops won't rush this fortress. Everyone is scared of the Grand War Master, who is actually Rosalie's father. His strength is so famous that any army that tries to engage him would be destroyed fast. Seiya asks a simple question: if the Grand War Master is that strong, why doesn't he just go out and crush the enemy himself? One of the soldiers answers that the War Master cannot leave the capital for a serious but undisclosed reason. That answer only makes the whole group more curious about what's going on. Before anyone sits down, Seiya takes charge and starts listing every risk he can think of, including the chance that hidden enemies are already inside the castle. They search top to bottom to be safe. After all that, they find nothing, which leaves Rosalie annoyed and impatient. She says the meeting is pointless and declares that she and the hero will just face the problem directly. Seiya says there's no reason to argue about tactics right now because he's leaving to train first. Rista backs him up and explains the Divine Realm time gap. They'll be missing from Fort Olga for 1 hour, but that equals 3 days of training for Seiya, where time runs differently. Rosalie hears this and explodes. To her, it sounds like Seiya is walking away when people need him, so she calls him a coward. Seiya stays calm and explains that training is necessary because he realized he could win against the flies, thanks to their extreme speed, which she interprets as him watching her soldiers die without lifting a hand. Rista tries to explain they intended to help but arrived too late to stop the slaughter. Even so, Rosalie's trust drops sharply. Rista asks her to please wait 1 hour, and she offers real condolences for the soldiers who fell. Rosalie refuses and says the pain her people suffered is cruel, in a way an immortal like Rista might never understand. Seiya cuts in and says the deaths are on Rosalie because she chose to attack without a plan. Rosalie throws a punch at him. Seiya blocks it easily. He says he believes in gender equality, then slaps her. She keeps swinging. He blocks and counters again and again, until her cheeks puff up like a hamster's. Seiya won't apologize. Rosalie, furious and stubborn, shouts that she'll go fight the monster alone. Seiya doesn't chase her. He sticks to his decision and goes to train. Back in the Divine Realm, Seiya explains to the team why he slapped Rosalie. Her reckless choice ignored the cost and made him angry. He adds that he already has a plan to deal with the flies. He asks Rista if there's any god of firearms or projectiles who can teach him a move to beat that kind of speed. Rista says no such god exists, and honestly, she'd be shocked if there were. That leaves them with bows. She says there is one option and leads him into the Divine Forest to meet Midas, the goddess of archery. Seiya doesn't waste time. He asks for a technique that lets him fire many arrows at once. Midas says the technique doesn't exist. The closest move is a special shot where you release one arrow, and it triggers a chain reaction so that multiple arrows strike the same target a heartbeat later. She demonstrates the pattern so he can see it. Seiya asks her to train him anyway, even though she just said humans can't learn it. Midas sets a test. If he can first create a magic sphere, she'll accept him as a student. Seiya then goes to Alulu and asks for help forming a fire bow. Alulu warns him this is not easy at all. Spoiler, he pulls it off on the first try. That result genuinely surprises Midas, so she agrees to train him. While Seiya is focusing on that, Rista runs into Circeus. He quietly warns her that Adenella's mental state has grown much worse since Seiya rejected her. Adenella is unstable, says scary things, and keeps threatening to rip Seiya apart. Rista goes straight to Arya to report it. Arya stays calm and says not to worry. First, Adenella can't kill a hero who is actively saving a world. Second, even if she tried, Seiya would defend himself. Arya is confident nothing truly bad will happen. Around this time, Arya also tells Mash and Alulu that she can help them unlock their own abilities. Rista pushes back and says that sounds like cheating. Arya explains it's just training. She helps people access the power they already have, not something from outside. After that, Rista decides to visit Adanella in person. The moment she enters, she can tell the rumors were true. Adanella is frenzied and demands to know where Seiya is. Rista keeps her voice even and says she came back alone, while Seiya remains in the other world. Adanella clearly doesn't believe her. Later, when Rista heads off to warn Seiya and suggests he leave the area, Adanella secretly follows and finds Seiya's spot in the Divine Forest. She's just about to strike when Seiya steps toward her first, totally calm, and says she looks a bit messy. He even reaches out and parts her hair. The words are sharp, but the gentle way he says it cuts through her rage. Because she still loves him, Adanella forgives him on the spot and stands down. Rista is stunned at how easily Seiya diffused the threat, and Seiya simply returns to training, focused on the work ahead. A few quiet days go by, and Rista decides it's time to check on the juniors and see how far they've come. She finds Mash looking confident and steady. He can now shift any single limb and arm, a leg, even parts of his face into dragon form on command instead of losing control. Alulu has unlocked something new as well, a power that changes how fast or slow people feel time. To prove it, she tests it on Mash first. She slows his sense of time so his movements drag, then she speeds him up so he zips around, and then she sets him back to normal. Feeling proud, Rista thanks Arya for the help with their training, promising that things should be easier from here. She also mentions that Seiya's bow training is going smoothly. Arya suddenly looks worried and asks if Rista brought him to Midas. Rista says yes, Midas is the only goddess of archery. Arya then lays it out. Midas is the riskiest deity among them. Her habit is to kidnap summon heroes and use them for her own desires, which is why she lives out in the Divine Forest. On top of that, relationships between gods and humans are forbidden. If Seiya makes that mistake, he'll be sent back to his original world, and Gaeabrande won't be saved. That warning lights a fire under Rista. She sprints into the forest to find Seiya and bursts into a clearing to a ridiculous sight. Midas has tied herself to a tree and is trying to tempt Seiya, begging him to free her by shooting 3 arrows. Seiya is not interested. To stop the flirting right there, he plants an arrow in her forehead. Furious, Midas breaks free of the rope and doubles down, trying to seduce him again. When that fails, she turns her attention to Mash. Right before Mash makes a mistake he can't take back, Seiya pins the goddess with 5 arrows and ends the scene. Mash's lesson wraps up, and Seiya drops his familiar line. Ready? Perfectly. The group heads out to deal with Beelzebub and his horde of flies. When they reach the fortress, they realize Captain Rosalie already rushed in alone. The team charges after her to help. As Rosalie climbs the tower, Seiya decides to use her as a diversion, planning to quietly snipe Beelzebub while the captain draws attention. A tiny slip, maybe a bald soldier clanking or coughing, gives them away. Beelzebub swoops, grabs Rosalie, rockets into the sky, and aims to drop her from high up. With no perfect shot, Seiya tells Rista to distract the fly while he lines up his arrows. The monster senses danger and climbs even higher to avoid being hit. Just when Beelzebub is about to let Rosalie fall, Rista casually comments on how great the weather is, and that split second of confusion is enough. Seiya fires. The arrow hits, Beelzebub loses his grip, and Rista catches Rosalie a heartbeat before impact. Hovering overhead, Beelzebub laughs that magic arrows can't beat Seiya. His speed is more than enough to dodge anything, and he already knows exactly where Seiya is shooting from. Right then, Seiya looses several arrows in quick rhythm. The fly weaves around them, and Braggs then freezes in shock, noticing a hole burn through his chest. Seiya had turned those arrows into phoenix birds mid-flight. They looped behind Beelzebub, struck from the rear, exploded, and that was the end of the fly commander. After the fight, Seiya says he wants Mash and Alulu to help bring some happiness to people, but he accidentally wipes out all the remaining flies himself, leaving the kids with nothing to do. Alulu uses her time trick to speed up Mash, and he collects the fly bodies in a blur. Once the piles are ready, Seiya burns the corpses so the area is clear. Before Rosalie leaves, she bluntly tells them about a legendary armor hidden at a temple near Izale village and says Seiya will need it to beat the demon lord. They head there fast and walk into a ruin. The village has been flattened. A demon beast did it, summoned by the same dwarf shopkeeper who once sold them torches. The hand behind it is Kilkapul, one of the 4 demon heavenly kings. He used the monster to steal the legendary armor, then smashed the relic so Seiya could never wear it. Rista starts to panic. They've got no true sword, and now no true armor. While explaining himself, the shopkeeper admits he couldn't face Seiya, steps into a summoning circle, and offers up his life to call the Reaper, cross Thanos. The price isn't only his own life, he also adds the lives of his family and the villagers he had already killed. The fight that follows is awful, Cross is overwhelming, and Seiya struggles just to survive. With perfect timing, Seiya slashes the Reaper, causing it to split into two, then yells for Rista to open a portal to the Divine Realm so they can escape. Relief lasts seconds. Cross can travel between dimensions, and it chases them into the Divine Realm. Rista asks if Seiya found any weakness. He hasn't, so they end up running while gods try to help. Cross regenerates, no-sells the attacks, and drops each deity one by one. Even Adanella steps in and still gets flattened. Seiya has a fallback. He drags the Reaper to Valkyrie, the goddess of destruction, strongest of all. Asking nicely won't work, she'd say no, so Seiya goes indirect and lets the Reaper wreck a painting Valkyrie is working on. That flips the switch. She beats Cross down, but it still won't stay down. Seeing that raw force isn't enough, Valkyrie uses her top move, Valhalla's Gate, a demon door that locks an enemy away forever. Cross is finally sealed. The price is brutal. The technique drains the caster's life force and would kill any human who tried it. Valkyrie starts bleeding heavily, but gods don't die, and she even enjoys the pain. After watching that, Seiya asks Valkyrie to train him and teach that move. She says no human can learn it, they'd die in the attempt. Seiya pushes back. You can't know until you try. Moved by his resolve, Valkyrie agrees to train him and tells him to meet her in 10 minutes at her place. Everyone can guess what kind of brutal training that means. Mash and Alulu head off to train with Arya, while Seiya quietly shows Rista a fragment of legendary armor he picked up. It's made from adamantite, a material that's incredibly tough. He fuses the shard into his blade and forges Adamantitor, a sword that's practically unbreakable. It might not be enough by itself to finish the Demon Lord, but it's still a major asset. Rista, thrilled, hugs Seiya, and he politely asks her to step back because there's a bad smell. Embarrassed and wanting to freshen up, Rista decides she needs a bath. As she's heading to the baths, she bumps into Circeus just as he's walking out. He uses the moment to tell her that great goddess Ishtar is looking for her right now, so Rista skips the bath and turns around. Ishtar meets her and gets straight to the point. The party must travel to the capital of Gaeabrande immediately. The final heavenly demon king is marching there with his full force, and the heroes have to stop him. After laying that out, Ishtar adds a blunt tip: Rista should really bathe, because she smells like vinegar. Rista hurries off to collect Mash and Alulu from training with Arya. Both kids have fully mastered their new abilities. Then they check in on Seiya, who's in the middle of unconventional practice with Valkyrie. Rista starts acting like a jealous girlfriend, and admits she even made a little doll out of her own hair to give to Seiya. That makes Valkyrie visibly uncomfortable. She decides she's not getting between Rista and Seiya's personal business anymore. Mash and Alulu say the hair doll was a bit much, but Seiya ignores the criticism, keeps the doll, and adds it to his stash. Rista tells everyone it's time to head out, but she misses one odd sign. Seiya doesn't say his usual catchphrase before departing. They arrive at the capital and see thousands of monsters gathered to strike. The demon commander, Eraser Kaiser, steps forward and demands they send out their strongest fighter. Just as Seiya is about to move, the Grand War Master appears, and the fight ends. Almost instantly he wipes out Eraser Kaiser and the entire army with ridiculous ease, barely trying. After that quick battle, the king, who hasn't been introduced until now, comes over to present himself to the heroes. Suddenly, the War Master acts strange and starts feeling sick. The truth drops. The War Master cannot leave the fortress because when he uses his power, he reverts into a baby. Rosalie shows up fast, orders the soldiers out, and we're reminded she's the War Master's daughter. She explains her father was cursed by the Demon Lord after trying to strike him some time ago. She asks the group to meet at the castle in 2 hours. While they wait, the team wanders the city. The capital throws a victory party. Rista suggests blowing off steam at a bar or casino. Seiya shuts that down. He wants to prep for the Demon Lord since nobody else seems willing to handle it. During their walk, Seiya spots a vendor selling healing herbs and promptly decides to buy 1,000. Rista is annoyed she has healing magic that's stronger than plants. The vendor challenges her to a quick test. To her surprise, she loses. The herb applies faster than her spell. At the castle, Rosalie opens up. She begs them to reject her father's request to join their mission. The War Master is very sick, time is short, and she wants to spend what little time he has left with him, remembering their life together. Later, when they sit with the War Master to plan an assault on the Demon Lord's stronghold, it's already been made clear they won't accept the king's help. In the middle of the talk, a soldier runs in. Survivors from the Demon Lord's army are attacking the city. Seiya volunteers to stop them and heads out, leaving Rista alone with the War Master. He takes Rista to a chapel where the gods are honored and asks why gods exist forever. Rista doesn't have the answer. He explains it himself. The souls of gods are stored in a special room in the celestial world where time doesn't pass. If a goddess loses her body, she's sent there and given a new one. In other words, the soul animating Rista right now isn't her original, which is locked away safe. Similarly, when heroes die, they're returned to their own world. Rista's stomach drops when he brings up a cursed artifact called Chain Destruction. It erases souls completely, god or human, so there's no return. On top of that, the Demon Lord forged a blade named God-Eater that can do the same, and he loaned it to the War Master. The old man admits that when he met the Demon Lord, his envy of never being chosen as a hero was obvious. The Demon Lord saw straight through him and forced him to swear loyalty. Then the War Master attacks. Rista dodges with impressive agility, but he still manages to grab her. As he's about to finish it, she screams for Seiya. The party arrives with Rosalie at the last second. She's horrified by what she sees. Seiya cuts in and saves Rista in time. When the War Master asks how Seiya knew to come, Seiya gives his typical answer. He had already mapped every possible outcome. Right as blades are about to clash, the War Master suddenly doubles over, seized by a crushing sickness. His strength drains, his body withers, and it looks like he's seconds from death. Then he swallows the demonic spirit orb the Demon Lord gave him. In an instant, he's restored and more youth floods back into his face, power surges through him, and his speed and force spike so high that Seiya struggles to keep up. The revitalized, now young War Master reads Seiya's moves almost immediately and starts countering every strike as if he's trained for this exact duel. Seiya answers by revealing he'd been holding himself back on purpose. Heavy arm weights. The moment he unstraps them, his footwork lightens, his sword arcs sharpen, and his whole rhythm changes. Dropping the weights pays off big, and with that fresh agility he presses forward. Rista tells Alulu to throw a quick support spell on Seiya, but Alulu calmly says she already did it ahead of time, exactly per Seiya's instructions. Rista recognizes the familiar pattern. This is Seiya's overprepared, ultra-cautious routine. Then a thought hits her hard. Before leaving, Seiya never said his trademark line. That tiny break in ritual makes her fear their usual flow won't play out the way it always does. The fight ramps up. Seiya gambles on a technique he learned from Valkyrie, a brutal trade. In a single exchange, he cuts off his own arm to force a mirrored result, shearing the War Master's arm at the same time. The shock freezes the old general for a heartbeat. Seiya drives through that opening and ends it cleanly with a decisive sword blow. When it's over, Rista rushes in and reattaches Seiya's arm, knitting him back together. Seiya, still steady, tells Rista to heal Rosalie's father as well. Rosalie refuses. The betrayal burned too deep. She snaps he's not her father and calls him a disgrace to the Empire. Seiya's answer is the same tough love as before he slaps her. He tells her that once the man is gone, he won't hear a single word, no matter how loud she cries, so speak now while there's still time. Rosalie finally faces him. She hears her father apologize and say he loves her right before the end. Later, word spreads that the War Master passed from old age, and Rosalie steps up to rule the Empire. Seiya then sleeps for 3 full days to recover. When he wakes, he gathers everyone and says that before they march on the Demon Lord, they'll enjoy a little time off. Rista and the 2 kids light up at the idea and head out to shop for celebration supplies. That evening, Seiya quietly leaves the city alone. When the planned meetup time arrives, he's still missing. They search the entire capital and find nothing. With no options left, they go to Ishtar. In her office, they find Arya already in tears. She leads them to the chamber where the souls of gods are stored, and Ishtar is there waiting. Ishtar tells them plainly, Seiya has gone to the Demon Lord's castle alone. Rista protests. There's no way the most cautious hero would rush in solo, not with chain destruction out there, a curse that can erase his soul completely. Ishtar explains this wasn't recklessness, it was protection. From the start, under his blunt attitude, Seiya was keeping them safe. She also reveals the wall he hit. Ever since the Dragon Village, Seiya has been at maximum level. He hit his status because he felt trapped. He couldn't gain a single point more. And at that cap, he couldn't beat the Demon Lord head-on. That's why he started looking for a different route. Shaking, Rista admits to Mash and Alulu that Seiya never actually had the Exation sword, and right now he has no true armor either. Ishtar adds the final puzzle piece. Seiya chose to learn Valkyrie's lethal art, the Gate of Valhalla. Rista says Valkyrie refused to teach it. Ishtar corrects her when Rista barged into that room. Valkyrie and Seiya were finishing the aura destruction ceremony. After watching Seiya's resolve to save the world, Valkyrie decided to teach him despite the cost. Rista, stunned, asks why Seiya would push himself that far. The Supreme Goddess answers with his past life. 100 years ago, Arya summoned Seiya as a hero. He traveled with friends. Among them was a young princess named Tiana, his partner. Back then, Seiya was confident, relaxed and proactive, not careful at all. They fought that world's Demon Lord. Seiya thought he'd won. He never checked the enemy's true mechanics. The Demon Lord revived. He had 2 lives and then killed Arya and Princess Tiana, who was pregnant with Seiya's child. Arya breaks down, blaming herself for that world. Rista starts crying too as the truth lands. She is Princess Tiana reborn. Without realizing it, she chose Seiya again, and with that realization her memories return. Ishtar explains that even though Seiya doesn't consciously remember, the regret carved into his soul never left. That's why, the moment Rista summoned him, the first odd word he spoke properties bubbled up from those buried feelings. He understood he'd been summoned before, and that it had ended in failure. Arya begs Rista not to go after him because it breaks the rules. Rista decides to help anyway. Mash and Alulu back her up. Impressed by Rista's unshakable resolve, Ishtar chooses to look the other way and opens a portal straight to the Demon Lord's lair. It's forbidden, but when someone is that determined to save a world, when they reach the Demon Lord's castle, they realize Seiya got there first and is already using Valhalla's gate to seal the Demon Lord away. But things suddenly tilt the wrong way. The Demon Lord unleashes his full strength and tries to tear himself out of the cursed gateway. Seiya rushes in to force him back, shoving with his blade. But it doesn't work because the weapon in his hand isn't the true Exasian. Even so, he refuses to back down. He keeps pressing with a barrage of strikes, then pulls out Aristotle, the custom piece he'd made using her hair and fuses that work with spikes from Valhalla. By combining them, he crafts a kind of underworld sword. And with that new edge, he finishes the Demon Lord, letting the gate swallow the enemy completely. Right after the win, Seiya starts bleeding hard from the rebound damage that comes with Valhalla's power. He turns to Rista and bluntly asks why she broke divine law to walk straight into the Demon Lord's lair. She answers that saving him matters more than arguing about rules. If he dies here, he'll never make it back to his original world. Seiya shrugs off the scolding. As long as the Demon Lord is down, he doesn't care about the lecture. To save him, Rista draws on divine authority, invokes a divine order, and begins to heal. Ishtar warns her immediately. She's already violated one rule, and she's about to cross another line inside the divine realm. If Rista keeps going, the penalty could be severe. She could even lose her title as a goddess. Rista refuses to stop. She says she'll accept any punishment that comes. She pushes her power to the limit. Even though the bleeding keeps reopening, she closes every wound Seiya has in the end, and the whole team cheers with relief. Rista, overwhelmed, leans in to kiss Seiya, and he shoves her away with a punch, rejecting her outright. In that awkward beat, Alulu notices something terrifying. The curse gate is still present. The doors creak open, and the Demon Lord emerges again, raging for one last world-ending strike. Seiya responds by opening an even bigger Valhalla gate and jailing the Demon Lord inside it for real this time. The gate's presence makes it clear. This time, the Demon King is gone for good. After that final seal, Seiya's body crashes. His health spirals down, and he starts to die. Rista tries to heal him again, but her magic only makes his state collapse faster. The gate itself declares that it can't save him. Seiya has to pay the price for using it. Rista begs the gate to spare him, but it refuses and slowly fades away. The kids suggest dragging Seiya back to the divine realm, but Rista explains he'll disappear the second she stops healing, so that won't work. Before he goes, Seiya thanks everyone for standing with him all the way. He hugs Rista, and as his body dissolves, he pulls her close one last time, and says he's grateful he could save her this time. Then he's gone. With the battle finished, Rista forces herself to move on. She says goodbye to two fresh recruits who've just joined the Imperial Cavalry, whose mission is to guard the realm against evil. People line up to thank her for saving their world, but the praise can't cover her grief over Seiya's death. Back in the divine realm, she suddenly feels Seiya's presence, sprints to his room, and finds it empty. The hope drains out of her, and she sinks into sadness. Not long after, Arya comes to tell Rista she's been called in to face punishment for breaking the rules. On the way, Arya promises to argue for a lighter sentence. As they walk to the council chamber, most of the goddesses they've met try to lift Rista's mood, everyone except Midas, who acts odd, like she's scouting for her next target. In the council, Ishtar first congratulates Rista for saving Gaeabrande, then delivers the punishment. Rista must now save an SS-rank world, and not just anyone, the exact world where she died in her past life. Arya erupts, calling the sentence unfair. She points out that world has already been overrun by the Demon Lord and twisted into a demonic realm, making the job impossible. Arya even offers to take Rista's place, but Ishtar denies the request. The terms get harsher. In that world, Rista is forbidden from using her healing powers, which means she can't support the hero she summons. Even so, Ishtar says she believes Rista can still save it. Arya reins herself in when she realizes she's shouting at her superior, and forces herself to calm down. Ishtar adds one more detail. When Seiya triggered the second Valhalla gate, it cancelled the chain destruction effect. That means Seiya's true essence wasn't erased. Normally, any hero who fails to save a world can never be summoned again to protect that world's fate, but in this case, the great goddess is making a special exception. A sheet of paper floats down from above. It's Seiya's record. Every stat line has been gutted. His powers are way lower than before. One thing jumps out in the personality column, though. An extreme meticulous caution that defines him more than ever. And that's where this video ends. If you stuck till end, you are a real legend. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Also watch this following video until new one.